Mime Radio Show podcast. I'm Karen Hoyer.
And I'm James Donlin here in California. Karen's in Chicago. And the world of Zoom and modern life allows us to contact interesting people and ourselves across the wide world. And helping us do that is our producer, somewhere behind our screens in the darkness, with his little lights and his buttons and all his consoles and keyboards, is our producer, Michael Diaz, who makes us who we are. So Karen, we have to toe the line, because if we don't, Michael can cut us off at any time.
Yes, and I think we're traveling all the way to Switzerland today.
That's right. And I'm really excited about this because there's been a film created by a wonderful young filmmaker. It's called The Art of Silence. And the filmmaker is Maurizius Drux, and my accent is not too good. But let me tell you something about him. Some of you may have heard about this film, especially those of you who have studied and practiced mime. The Art of Silence is the film. And the filmmaker is Maurizius Drux. He is a celebrated Swiss-German filmmaker and sound artist based in Zurich, Switzerland. Influenced by musical instruments and sign language, he moves between the worlds of language and images, which come together in film. His debut film, Concrete Love, was shown in over 30 countries and won multiple awards. Since 2017, he has been imparting his passion for film and sound as a lecturer at the Zurich University of the Arts. In 2022, Maurizius made the stunning film, The Art of Silence, a documentary studying the life of legendary mime Marcel Marceau. The tragic background behind Marceau's work has remained hidden for a long time. The Art of Silence sheds new light on his life and unique art form, which his family and companions keep alive to this day. Maurizius says, in quotes, "I grew up with a deaf father. From an early age, my visual attention was nurtured because my life sometimes resembled a silent movie." And with that, let's welcome in Maurizius Drux from Zurich.
Hello.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation.
Yes, it's so wonderful to have you with us on the Mime Radio Show podcast. And I really want to hear what inspired you to start this project and how it got started. But first, I want to ask you about the opening image and this recurring image that you have of the water. There's this beautiful image of a gesture that is created with the image of water. And the thing that resonated with me is, as a mime artist, when we study resistance, trying to show something that's not there, to show resistance or effort, we think of it as moving through water, so that instead of just waving through the air, we have a certain amount of resistance as if you're walking through water. So there's a beautiful image to start this movie. What inspired that?
Well, actually, this was a process. When I started to do this project about Marcel Marceau, actually, I was really afraid of, because I've never met him. So doing a film about a person who you can't speak to anymore is really challenging. So I was afraid of doing this. So the first thing you do is you just watch what is left. And I found a lot of archive footage of him. I watched maybe over 3,000 hours of footage. And I try to find a truth in there, and some material was interesting, some not so much. But the next question I had was how to handle this material. I mean, we can do just a normal film by editing different kinds of archive material together to tell something, but you can also try to put yourself into this material. So I start to experiment with this, and I did a lot of projections with archive material on water on the surface. So in the film, but maybe this is another topic, the nature, the environment is really important. So the film also in the beginning established this perspective that we're telling a film about a person who maybe is dead, but something is left, and we are following these traces. So from this point of view, I started to create these images, and on it got like the idea of water, of movement, of coming together, and like in the end the water is going to a specific place near the ocean, where the final scene is taking place. So
yeah, it's very beautiful. As Carrie was saying, the visceral connection to physics and nature and the universe is that, how you come against a force. There's yourself, and then there's the other, and water is such a, and it was our, the Homo sapien came from water, they say. We all sprung out of water, but that, it's a very beautiful image that you've, the river of life, all these metaphors that you could speak about. So that's very proud. I think you're exactly right with this connection to nature, and there's some really beautiful references to that, which I think, which we'll ask about you later, is, I think it probably provoked your sense of sound design too, like how to integrate that, which is also becomes present in that first scene. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I have lots of questions. I wrote down, we're not going to ask you the typical questions of the mind, right? And but I'm really curious. Your film is so provoking with thoughts, not only because of history and the sense of being human, and the emotional fabric of who people are and where we've come from, where we've been to, the sense of family. There's so much in this film that's bigger than just the art of mime. And could you speak just a little bit about what inspired you to search out this material?
Yeah. Well, actually, like you introduced me, I grew up with a father who's deaf, and this handicap was always a problem for him. Of course, like in the age where he grew up, it was forbidden to speak with hands, so he kind of had to adapt to the normal hearing people, and this is a suffering problem he still has. So discovering mime was amazing for my father. I think it gave him so much freedom, and I think it's one of the reasons why he became a mime himself. I think he's talented, so he could become a mime, but the inner idea that you find a way to express yourself and to understand, okay, we can communicate with each other and overcome any borders, linguistic borders, and so on. This was really important for him and saved his life, So I'm deeply touched by this. And I saw my father a lot on stage. I have artist parents, so I traveled around with them as a child. And as a child, mime is wonderful. I mean, it's the world of the imaginary. You dream with it, you go with it. So when I grew up, I was a bit fed up. I thought, yeah, okay, again, a mime number, I wanted to go more into the concerts and music and experience other stuff. So like, yeah, normal teenager. So if you would have asked me to do a film about mime, I would say never in my whole life I would do a film about mime. Never, never, ever. So you mentioned my last film, Concrete Love, and I showed this film in New York, and I was invited for dinner, and I got to know to an old lady who was sitting next to me, and she told me that she was saved by a mime. Her life was saved by a mime, and this sentence was so strange for me. I mean, how could a mime save one's life? I mean, how does it work? Like, open a door, a hidden door, and go into it? What does she mean? I was so confused and intrigued as well. And actually, she told me that she was a Jewish child in France, and she tried to escape from France to Switzerland. And there was a small group of people who helped her, and one person in this group was Marceau. Actually, his real name was Marcel Mangel. He was a Jewish person, and was part of the resistance and helped children to cross the border to Switzerland. So I saw there a connection between these children who learned to act to be somebody else, and to be a mime where I think you don't act, you have to be somebody else to make believe that you are this. And I think this is for me, this was always the power of mime. When I see somebody on stage, I don't have the feeling of acting anymore, but I believe that this person is now a stone or a tiger or anything. I mean, this is like the thing we have with children. We say children don't play, they are things, they don't act to be a tiger, they are a real tiger.
Yeah, it's sorcery. It's like, it's magic, there's magic. Yeah.
So I had I saw a link between these things, and I was really intrigued, and this was kind of the point where I thought, okay, maybe it is worth to overcome my cliche of mime and to rewatch all the mime numbers I saw by my father, and to rethink why he was doing this, and maybe also why Marceau was doing this. And this was the starting point, and it got really interesting for me, even though I couldn't speak to Marceau anymore.
It seems like you're talking about saving a life, and in one sense it saved your father's life too, and maybe you weren't aware of that until you were older and you saw, more deeply into that world. Did it change? Was your relationship or your understanding of your father, did it change after working in this project? Did it change him? I mean, what? It seems like there would be some metamorphosis and some transformations possibly, or maybe they were always there, but they were defined now.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as I started the project, you kind of have a script, and for documentary, a script is really special because you can't predict the future. So it shows more where you want to go into and what you want to experience or explore. And you have a director's note where you write about your motivation. So my motivation was more or less what I told you right now. And in the script, my father was not present at all. So I planned to do a film without my father, just about Marceau, his family, and other people. And for me, it was totally clear that I would never, ever film my father, because I just didn't want to do, like this father-son film and go with camera to the father and say like, what you're doing and how's our relationship, I would never, ever start a project like this, So I completely forgot my father. I did this film. I started shooting. I started editing maybe for 2-3 years. And then COVID came. There was this lockdown. We couldn't keep on shooting. And we almost had a finished film, It was almost finished. And we all, like the producers and the editor and me, we just watched this film. And it was nice, but it was kind of, like another documentary by somebody, it could have been done by anyone kind of. So it was almost the editor who told me, like, actually why I said yes to this project is because you told me about your background, and I think we should kind of try to put it in the film a bit that the audience can experience it. And COVID was like an invitation to spend more time with your family. So I felt okay shooting with my father because I accomplished already the film. It was a complete different situation than starting a film about somebody you don't know, about like a huge legendary mime, about a lot of people and archive material you have to contact and like get the rights and stuff, like all this difficult stuff. You could avoid it and just go to your father and start, let's film. So it was much easier to go to him in the end, and I knew exactly what was missing, and I just shot 2 days with him, just 2 days of filming, and he's pretty present in the film.
Yeah, it's that the particular study of him and his connection to the work was very inspirational for me, because I'm an older mime. I might be a little younger than your father, but maybe we're the same age. I'm not sure. But his appearance in the film was very powerful for me, and it also inspired me as a old mime to appreciate where I'd come from and what I felt now, or where I was going. And what was particularly interesting with his presence is that I really did feel nature. I think, the scene with the hands in front of the water, the scene with the sand at the end. I mean, those are very, very powerful for people like myself. So
yeah, we have to make it really clear to our listeners that this is not your ordinary documentary. It's not people, talking heads is what we assume as a documentary is people talking about something. This is such a beautifully photographed artistic film. And the way that you take these visual images from all these different sources and you put them together, you tell the story by putting those two things together without someone explaining, this is what happened to Marceau in his life growing up, but putting those images together from the past and from the present is just a really fascinating way that you brought this all together.
What surprised you when you were in the process during the project? What particularly might have surprised you that you weren't aware of, that you discovered, or provoked you to want to do more?
Well, actually, like doing documentary, it's like a luxury, and it's like that's what I love. It's like you get surprised by every day, and you have to be open every day because you can't predict things. But basically, I love to spend time together with people. And what really surprised me is when I knew, okay, I start this project about Marcel Marceau, but he's already dead. I tried to contact his family. And then I found out that his cousin is still alive. And I was really lucky when I met him, because he was still pretty young. He was only 104 years old. After finishing shooting with him over the years, he died with 108 years. Wow. So I had enough time to shoot with him and spend time and experience.
He's a wonderful character.
So you captured him right before he died. You were able to get him on.
Yeah, like I had for years, and this is the thing what you mentioned about a normal documentary, kind of what you would do in a normal documentary, and like because of time and money, you would try to contact somebody, you would visit this person, prepare an interview, ask questions. Maybe the person is giving you the right answers, maybe you don't get what you expected, maybe you feel there's maybe a mystery or a secret behind it and you try to get it, but of course you don't get it because you don't know this person. So you go home, and if you do a normal documentary, you have to deliver this documentary by end of the year or end of the month, or even by end of the day, I don't know. So the way I work is, after this first meeting, I think like, okay, we filmed the whole day, but I won't use this material at all. It was just to get to know each other. And then there's kind of a love story who might begin, because if you do this kind of film, you kind of have to fall in love each other. So I have to fall in love with this protagonist, and the protagonist has to fall in love not with me, but maybe with the project, or with something with the film. The protagonist has to feel that the film is an invitation to explore himself or to discover something new.
Mhm.
Then I think then we can meet on a completely different level, and we can redo an interview or shooting, but it will be about something else. So that's why I need a lot of time to spend with people, and I revisit them. And with George, we're talking about George, this 104-year-old person, for example. He talked me how he was in the resistance, how he helped the children together with Marcel Marceau to cross the border and so on. But he told me also historian stuff, which was important. But like only the last meeting, he kind of wanted to show me the secret why he thinks he survived all these difficult times and why he thinks he's immortal. And he showed me his exercise he's doing every day, in order to survive. And so I discovered a person who truly believes in the connection between his soul and his body. And you were asking about something who surprised me. This was a key element where I also felt this existential question about this need to survive, or how Mime.
He went in that particular section. Everyone should watch this film because he goes into the depths of a surprising place you wouldn't even expect when he's describing the exercises with his core sexual organ. Like it's like
he was charming. He was so wonderful,
profound. It really is profound.
I have a question for you that was puzzling me. How did you connect with Marceau's family, with his wife and his two daughters, his grandson? They have a huge part in continuing Marceau's work, and they're carrying on in a sort of an abstract way. That was very interesting. How did you get access to the family?
Well, since I knew I don't have a personal relation to Marceau, I knew I have to contact the family. And it's also like on a legal side, you just can't go out and do a film about Marceau or just show material of him. You need, like this art form is protected, so you need the rights as well. So it was clear to me that I have to contact the family. And I just wrote them a letter, and they were really kind to invite me for dinner. So I kind of, pretty young, no idea what to do. I tried to explain what to do, even though I didn't know really what the film would be about. I tried to share more my passion about doing something about mime and about sounds. And well, they listened to me and they nodded all the time, but they never agreed to my film project in the beginning. But the nice thing was that also did not deny it, So I just keep revisiting, and I was kind of, like experiencing if there would be something. I never thought about filming with them. I just thought, okay, to get to know each other. And then I discovered this place, this theater where they still keep on doing theater, and I discovered that they do a piece about Marcel, and I felt, okay, they're kind of the same. They're also rethinking of this past time and how the art of mime should go on, and I got to know to his grandson, who I thought was a really interesting character, and so we just kept on developing our relationship.
Speaking about the grandson, there's that so interesting scene with the costume, with the clothing, with the dress, and with the suit, and the talking about the layers of who one is. That was such an interesting scene. How did that come about? Where that was very intimate and very personal.
Yes.
How were you able to arrive at that point? or is it even possible to describe?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he was so vulnerable and trusting to you.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Louis Chevalier. He's the grandson of Marcel Marceau, and when I met him, he was only 14 years old, so really young personality, but
Yeah.
he's like already tall and a dancer, so he's really, like a charming personality. You would not think of a child, And so he was involved in the piece as well, and I talked about his role, and he told me pretty honest about his feelings because he also felt a bit of anger against his grandfather because everyone is like telling him, "Ah, oh, you're the grandson of Marcel Marceau," but he thinks I did not really knew him. I have nothing to compare to, like he feels really strange about it, and I could really understand it because I was also a person doing a big film about Marcel Marceau. And who am I to do this? There's so many people who have a personal relationship about to him, or they know a lot of about him. So I could kind of deeply connect with the feelings of Louis, I think. And then he shows me a lot of his other dances and the way he is expressing his feelings through dance. And one day he shows me his dance with la robe, with the dress. He's dancing with a woman dress.
Yeah.
And he told me, okay, this is for me. It's not a dress. It's really my skin. So I learned that he's also somebody who's expressing himself through the body language and not through words. And I thought this is really important for the film because actually that's what's happening when we're talking about mime, that we talking about inner expressions who are not verbal,
Yeah, the complexities. Let me ask you a question. So you grew up with a deaf, a deaf father with all his traumatic, childhood. Excuse me. So there was a sense of what sound is. It probably, whether the absence of it or the presence of it, and you're a sound designer and a sound artist. So I'm thinking that your childhood was in, that being around in this environment maybe influence. How did that influence you to have an interest in sound? And then the challenge is you're doing a film about mime, and then how important is sound? I say that you can't have sound without silence, and you can't have silence without sound.
Yeah.
My mind is spinning now. There's parts of the film, especially during Marceau's footage, when he's performing either in the studio or on the stage, I can hear his breath sometime. I can hear his footsteps. I think there's one point when the great scene with the waiter and the customer in the restaurant, I even hear a fork drop, I think, which probably you added, some element of very subtly this culinary sound. So can you talk about sound as an artist and how it came about and how important it is to the film?
Yeah. Well, there's the superficial layer when you say, well, I do a film about mime and silence, like everyone thinking, I have a great idea. You just don't use any sound, So this is like the superficial reaction I also have, of course, that I think, maybe I just, in the middle of the film, I take a scene and there's no sound, of course. But for me, there's a deeper understanding of sound that kind of you try to do sound for the feeling of silence. And for me, silence is a really loud environment. Yeah, so going back to my childhood, it's kind of the same cliche, like people thinking, you had a deaf father and you were living in silence. Of course I am, but like being with deaf people, they're super loud because they're not aware of what they do, or what produces sound.
Yeah.
So I think my role from childhood, also on a psychological level, is being a translator, like when my father can't speak to people or they don't understand, I try to translate, and then maybe they say something rude. So as a child, you have to translate it back, but maybe you don't choose these words, you manipulate it a bit. So actually, it's the same thing in documentary. You try to tell the whole life of Marcel Marceau in 80 minutes with different people. It's kind of seeking for the truth, but there will never be any truth. So for me, it's really important to put my subjectiveness in it, like how I feel or see things. And the sound is a great help for that, because it's not like a teacher telling you something. It's more on a sensual level. So when I start this project, I saw, like I told you before, I saw all this archive material, and the archives are really short. Sometimes they have music, sometimes they're from a newsreel. So somebody's telling about, tomorrow Marcel Marceau will be cut. There's silence because the archive has no sound. Cut. There's another archive with la 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 music. So if you cut it together in order to create a scene out of the archive on a sound level, it's a complete randomized mess. So simple thing is you just mute it and you have silent archive, but we would go back to this superficial vision of, okay, we have a film about mime, and as soon as we have archive, it's just silent, So on the other side, I had this problem. Okay, I never met Marceau, so in the early stage, I found some clothes of him in the house of the family. So I was able, for example, to wear his coat and to enter his skin. I thought it's psychologically, it's really important, because this is something what mimes do as well. They have to enter a skin of somebody else to become this person, Mm-hmm. So I try to do this as a filmmaker as well. And I'm moving myself, and I start to hear how his movement could have sounded, So I reacted all the scenes with his clothes. On the other hand, I used artificial intelligence to extract his briefing out of recordings who were available.
That's so beautiful. It's really beautiful. Yeah, it's really well done what you're describing now. Those little subtle sounds and percussions. It's really, really, really good. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So we kind of try to restore the archive also on a sound level, and to put a complete different light on the very same recording, but changed through sound, Like a funny number can suddenly be really dramatic because you have really heavy footsteps and a heavy breathing, Mm-hmm. So it helps you to get another perspective on things. So I was really into this, and we worked for months on the soundtrack. And for example, if you hear birds in the background or wind, it's just all recorded human voices. It's just like we reproduced all sounds by human voices. For example, the birds are singers who are singing the birds. We recorded birds, and we let them replay 400 times slower, And then we have singers singing this slowness, and we re-speeded it. So you hear real birds, Mm-hmm. But when you listen carefully, you realize these are just human voices, So the whole world building is made out of humanity who tries to rebuild the sound of the nature and the world.
That's beautiful. That's amazing.
Yeah. One of the beautiful scenes is I like, because I also am passionate about trains, but the scenes of the children on the railway with the squeal of the wheels and the sounds and the images of nature. There's going over the bridge with the the turmoiling water, the tunnel receding, the children look, the one child looking between the seat. It's really a beautiful section there that combines sound and image. I appreciate that very much. Ask me about Rob Merman.
Yeah, I was really interested how you got connected to Rob Merman. And he's an amazing mime, but he is using mime as a healing tool for people with a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. And the images of his work, of him talking, but also working with his companions in this class using mime. How did you get connected with Rob?
Well, when we started the project, we had producers who thought, okay, let's do a big mime film, and we just search for the most successful, biggest mime in the world still alive, in order to show like the audience, okay, mime is still existing, it's still huge, and there's still big audience around it. So I kind of like the idea, but the truth is, it is not the fact, you know? Like, we tend not to go to mime shows every night. Of course, it is still alive, and that's beautiful, but it's at the moment not popular, and that's okay. But still, there's still so interesting people to meet, and I did a big research. I met a lot of people, interesting artists. I could see other artists who I felt, okay, they were inspired deeply by mime. They're doing something else, but still, there's still this art living on. And so I also came across Rob Merming through the internet, you know. And then like I thought, this is interesting what he's doing. I did not really understand. And like one producer was like, okay, but he's not, you know, like he's not kind of the best artist alive, you know, like in this perspective.
Right.
And then I learned
he's not touring the world like Marceau did.
Yeah. But still, you know, then we learned about him, that he's got Parkinson's disease, and that like being a mime his whole life has a new meaning now. And this was again for me really interesting, because I came back to this key sentence of this old lady, like, mime saved my life, you know. I kind of found this key sentence in order to choose my protagonist for the film. I just wanted to have people in the film who of course have a inspiration or a connection to Marceau, but who are really using mime in order to survive, you know. And Rob is for me a really great example, who is fighting his disease and the disease of others in order to learn from his body work experience and from mime. And I just wrote him, we had a Zoom like we have now, and then I just told him, okay, in 3 months I will be at your door. And he was like, okay. And I think he was not really sure if I would come or not. But I was there, and we spent 2 beautiful weeks together shooting this episode of the film.
Yeah, it's very powerful. Very powerful stuff. What do you want the audience to take away from this project? I mean, if one watches the film, what would you hope that they would feel and remember and think about?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, this film should invite you to put any emotions you have in it. So if you're feeling happy, if you're feeling sad or guilty, I don't know, you should be able to put this emotion in it and to get something bad. So I don't want to guide the audience. But of course, I have 2 big visions. The first vision is thinking of Marceau. Why is it important to make a film of him? Of course, he was important artist and so on. But for me, this is not enough as a reason to do a film. For me, it was really important to see a person who was going into war, who was fighting in the war without any weapon. So in times where we have to be involved in wars or in fightings, and to find a way to be part of a war without any weapon, and to recall everyone that we are one human being and together on this world, I think this is really important. And for me, in this sense, he's for me kind of a hero. This is one thing, and I think you can experience this humanity in the film a bit, or it was really important for me to put it out. And the other thing is that, like, watching a film can be entertaining, or I don't know why we watch film, but for most people, or sometimes also for me, it is to escape your reality, you know. You come back from work, you feel kind of tired, or you have to think about something, and you think like, oh, I can stop work or stop my problems. I want to enter a world where I can just fly away and forget the things, but maybe also in the inner process rethink about myself. And maybe, and I think this is wonderful, with that the film can have a power to find new ways of living, you know, to find a force to rethink your life and to think, okay, maybe I change tomorrow or something. And the film should be, I think, also be an invitation to everyone to rediscover the ways of communicating without words, to re-experience kind of the own body and the own purpose, why we are on earth with our body and not just with our thoughts. And yeah, I think this is also a reason why I put so many different characters in the film, in order to show that this diversity is alive and it's available, and it is in all of us, I think.
Did you learn more about your own craft, or how did it change you? You know, are you a stronger filmmaker now, or are you a different person, or is this
I hope
invite
so.
you to continue further?
I hope so. I mean, it's so hard to analyze or judge yourself, but
Yeah.
I learned a lot, and now, like, after the film, I became a father for the first time, and like seeing the world through the eyes of a children, like, showed me how much I learned to watch at things differently, and that there's always two sides of a stone, or of a problem, or of a conflict, or of a person. And that mime is kind of a playful way to think about the different dimensions we are going through. So I just learned that there's so much more to discover. Yeah. I try to keep on.
Sorry, when you were talking about Marceau and his experiences in the war, which, like, there's been a commercial film about that called Resistance, about his life. But the thing that I remember is when I was in high school, going to a performance by Marceau, and he had a particular piece about war. And one that was about Bip going to war, but another one was just about memories, and he's in the attic remembering things. But I remember being so moved by it, and it was nobody telling me a story. It was all in my imagination and this man's performance on the stage. And I remember just like standing up and giving a standing ovation in this giant auditorium where nobody else was standing up, but I was just like, it blew me away. And to me, this idea of using images in film and in mime, you're working with images that they go straight to your soul, your heart. It doesn't get filtered through your brain and your language. It's very powerful.
I always say the mime brain is the cinematic brain. I mean, the two, or the animation brain, it's the same thought process, I think. The
way, for instance, Marceau could do a close-up just by concentrating his particular gesture. It's like the whole audience zooms in for a cinematic close-up.
Yeah. Wow, what a great conversation.
You have to ask James about the process of a documentary. You actually mentioned this, like you film a lot, but you only use like a small percentage of it, right? So do you have like a lot of outtakes from this project that you're going to use to make another project?
Yeah, I saw something about a third documentary and some of the information. Have you done a second piece, or done something differently, or do you have plans to do anything more with this subject?
With the subject, no, at the moment, not at all. And actually, I do not have so much more material, because I prepare a lot and I think about shooting a lot, and then it takes me a whole day to just shoot, I don't know, some pictures. So I need a lot of time, but I do not really have so much material. And the funny thing is, if you have kind of this perspective, like I told you about this, the mime saved my life. It's when you rewatch all the archive with this sentence in your head, there's a lot of archive which is not usable for me, which is great, but under this perspective, it is not. So of course, maybe we could do a complete different film with a different perspective. And for me, I would be really happy, to see other people doing film about mimes or about Maso. I think there's much more to discover, but I think it would be interesting to add just other perspectives on it.
Yeah. This has been a great conversation, Maurizius. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much.
I know that our listeners are going to be very interested in this film, and we'll include a link to how they can access the film, probably through Vimeo here in the United States. But we'll connect also to your website so that they can find out that way also.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you're doing this, and I just told you quickly before that unfortunately I was not happy. I was not able to travel to the US for presentation of festivals for the film because I was completely busy here. So I'm so happy about people seeing the film, or if they have a question or feel something, if they write me, if you Google my name, you'll find my email.
Yeah.
So to get a bit interaction with people, I could not really experience this yet in the US, so I'm really curious about your reactions.
Well, we will spread the word and do it. It's a great film.
Thanks.
Great film, and thank you. Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was an interview with Maurizius Drux from Zurich, the filmmaker of The Art of Silence.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And
thank you so much, James and Karen.
Goodbye.
See you next time. Ciao.